Hi, I'm Mark Honeybone from Property Ventures, and welcome to our weekly podcast where we interview prominent members of the investment community along with other professionals in the New Zealand property market. This is a free service from Property Ventures so that you can keep current and learn from some of the best around New Zealand. To check us out, take a look at propertyventures.co.nz. We hope you enjoy today's podcast. Welcome back to part 2 of the interview with Olly Newland. We move on to talking about the current property cycle, opportunities in it, mainly in Auckland, and he gives advice to the new investor. We hope you enjoyed today's interview. We'll talk about this property cycle. How different do you see this property cycle to others, and why?
Okay, well, people are talking about the next boom and bust, or rather the next bust, because prices have gone up too much, but I have a feeling that the property cycle that we've gone through, we sort of had a big one in the early 2000s and then a little bit of a GFC there, and then it starts again. I think this is not going to go away. It may level off, but as things are today, and all my predictions expired at midnight tonight, by the way, right? So don't come back to me tomorrow. But I think there's just a readjustment of prices, as you've seen in many other items, like oil, for instance. And oil used to be $20 a barrel many years ago. Now it's $100 a barrel. It's just a permanent readjustment. It's never going to drop back to $20 a barrel in my lifetime or yours. Same with gold. Gold was $150, $200 US an ounce. A few years back now, it's somewhere $1,200 or $1,400 an ounce. It's not going to fall back to $200 an ounce. And so we have, I think, a readjustment of property, realisation that property and land is a finite resource, and there's been a big readjustment of prices all over the world, by the way, not only New Zealand. And I think this is here to stay. Now, there will be wobbles and downturns and so forth, but to collapse back to where they were 50 years ago or something like that is well, we'll all be gone, you included.
Yeah.
So I think we'll reach the top of the cycle, flatten out. There'll be ups and downs and people shouting from the rooftops, but there'll still be plenty of money to be made if you're careful. And then it's a sort of step formation. You rise, and then there's a levelish period, statistically speaking, then another rise 5, 10 years, 12 years later. You can still make lots of money in between. You just got to be careful. And I mean, obviously, there's a complete global financial meltdown, then all bets are off. But all things being equal, I think we've had a permanent readjustment of prices, and rents have been the next thing. The rents are just got to rise. I've been predicting it for a while. I've been wrong so far, but it's just ridiculous that rents are only 2 or 3% of the capital value of a property. There's got to be a major adjustment of that upwards sooner or later. How people are going to pay, I don't know. It just doesn't make sense. There's a problem in the wings they're waiting to come.
Yeah, it is, and we've spoken to people about the government and different things they want to do with the warrant of fitnesses and all those bits and pieces, and it appears now National will finally realise that there's only so much you can do before it costs the investor too much, and it's going to affect the punter renting the property severely. As I said, how people are going to afford the rental increases in the future. They will, it has in the past, I guess.
I don't have a problem with the warrant of fitness. I mean, if you're a half-decent landlord, you've got to give your tenants a reasonable property, and I wouldn't have anything to do with a property that was, falling apart and mouldy and what have you. But what annoys me is many of the tenants take a very good property and turn it into a mouldy wreck. It's your fault, and which irritates me no end. And the whole tenancy. The problem is that landlords and tenants are locked together in a sort of macabre dance of death, and we should have a different system altogether, where tenants should be allowed to rent a property for a lifetime. This happens overseas. There's nothing new in this idea. People should be able to write up a lease for 50 years. Why not? And that lease becomes valuable to the tenant. So, I mean, if somebody came along and said to you, look, Mark, I'll buy your house off you, give you a full price and give you a 99-year lease back, you'd say, well, this is my home. What do I care? 99 years, you say? And people should have that option. And just this is not a new idea. And then we wouldn't have this 6 month and 12 month nonsense and out the door again and shuffling around. People could actually make a home out of their places, and we end up with people who are investing long term and not looking for speculative gain. They just want a steady income, and those who regard the home they're renting as their home, because it's going to be with them for a lifetime, and they can pass it on to their kids. They can sell the lease, just similar to commercial property. They can sell the lease to somebody and get some money that way. Why we can't have a civilised system like that, I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. And boy, you have to have a tenant actually looking at their place, their place, rather than just another tenancy they might get kicked out of in 6 months' time. I remember my grandparents, they rented a place for 30 years, and as far as I was concerned, as a young fella, not knowing any different, that it was their house, and it was their home, and the kids' home and the grandkids' home. So you're dead right on the button. So,
do you lie on the floor and cry because your skybox or something is rented from and watch TV? You don't give a damn.
yeah.
Lots of cars running around at the moment leased. Who cares? They look the same, they drive the same, they go the same. Who gives a damn? Why can't you lease a home long term? Why do you have to have a 6 month or 12 month lease with a tenancy tribunal standing over you and inspections every so often? Why can't you take a place and call it your own? It's beyond me. I'd be happy to rent places out for 20 years at a time with regular rent reviews every, say, 5 years or 3 years or something like that, but not crazy rent reviews. And then the whole matter settles down and people have homes on one side and landlords have a long-term income which they can pass on to their kids and grandchildren on the other. And the whole steam and heat and light will be taken out of the market.
Right, yeah. Back just on that, I'm just interested in with your property management company you've got there, most of your rentals, I know all around the country, that vary. Some parts of the country they're all periodic tenancies, and others are all fixed tenancies. What are most of yours in Auckland? Do you know more?
We try very hard to get fixed term tenancies because because a lot of it depends on the tenant. They don't want a fixed term tenancy; they want a periodic one. But most of them, we try to encourage them to go on fixed term, and in turn be gentle with them. So that we don't have to have the hassle of properties coming vacant over and over again. It's the ideal situation. And the trouble is often telling the owners, the landlords, the owners, that keep your rents reasonable so you can rent the place straight away. But many landlords have a higher expectation of what the rent should be, and so the place stays empty for a month or two. And we say, look, you might as well have rented it out more cheaply and got it filled.
Yeah.
You've lost the money. You're never going to get it back. If it's empty for 2 months because you're asking too much, you might as well have cut the rent early on and got the place filled.
Yeah, I'd say with some people, even 2 weeks at $400 a week, that's $800 they're missing out on. How many weeks at $20 difference does that add up to?
Right, you can never get it back. That's money lost.
Yeah.
I'm dealing with somebody now who's had a place empty for 3 months.
Yeah.
And can't talk. They've got a figure on the property, which is sky high, and we tell them, this isn't going to happen. It's 3 months has gone by. Obviously, the market doesn't like the price. You've got to cut it by $50 a week. No. He wants this X figures. He wants it X dollars, or he's not renting it. I said, well, you've just lost $8,000 so far over the last, $10,000, whatever it is, over the last 3 months. You're never going to recover it. I don't want to stand his face that you're a dog. He just doesn't get it. There you are. So what can you do? It's different for commercial though, because rents in commercial do have a big effect on the value of a property, while rents on residential have no effect on the value. That's the big difference. One of the big differences between commercial and residential.
Yeah, we might get back one day in the future to talk about commercial. We'll see about that afterwards. In fact, just one of the things you picked up on there is that you listen to the market is not only with rents, but one thing I see people with, whether it's rentals or a rent or a price of a property, of selling a property, is sometimes people don't listen to the market. If you've had a place on the well advertised, well presented for a certain price and it doesn't sell, people have to listen to the market, I guess. Some people don't. I don't know what your opinion on that is.
I've got another client now. He's got a commercial property. This is about marketing, and he's had it on the market for a year, and he's had it up for auction twice and up for tender twice in that time, and the market keeps on underpricing what he wants to get for it. And I've told him, look, mate, the market has spoken to you 4 times and said it's not worth what you want for it.
Yep.
And he's losing hundreds of thousands, mark you, hundreds of thousands a year rent.
Yep.
So imagine the size of this property, and he just won't budge. So, the main problem is I think he's just bloody minded. But I said the market has spoken 4 times to you by tender and by auction, and it hasn't sold. So what's that tell you?
Yeah, no, that's right.
Bleeding obvious, isn't it? And his head offers below what he wants. And I said, take the damn thing. By the time you put it in the bank, within 6 months you recouped it. No. So no, you can take a horse to water, but can't make it.
I remember many years ago, and it was about the just after the market hit the top, so about 08, and it had a place, and it was costing me $6,000 a month to hold. And it was the market had said what it was worth, and it was worth less than I paid for it, and we built it. And you have a choice. You be stubborn and you keep losing $6,000 a month for the next 4 years, or 5 years or longer it would have been perhaps, or you'd say the market spoke, this is where it is, there's offers on the table, take it.
Yeah, that's what I recommend too, and I've done it too. You get a dud deal, and I've had a few, don't worry. Yep. You get a dud deal, they're telling you that you've made a mistake, you're not getting what you thought, cut its throat, it's out the door, gone, cut your losses, next deal please.
Yep.
Get on with it, not sit there waiting for some Father Christmas to turn up and some crazy number that you're not going to get.
Yep.
You'll get it in 20 years' time, but by then you've lost millions.
Yeah, dead right. Okay, well, we'll move on, and we won't talk politics and get you in trouble, Ollie. But just an announcement last Sunday from National regarding the handout to make it easier for the first home buyers. It's been a bit of a turnaround of the last 12 months of first home buyers around the country, I guess. Any thoughts on that, and you see it affecting the market at all?
I'm hardly up to talk about this. I got slapped on the wrist a couple of days ago by the Electoral Commission because I dared put up an article on my website talking about the capital gains tax. I got a big slap from the Electoral Commission and had to take it down. So there's so much for free speech. So am I allowed to talk about that? Well, okay, we'll talk about it and hell with it. I can't see any harm in it. If it helps one person into a house that wouldn't get it before, then it's worth doing. But I don't think there's a shortage of housing at all. This is the bottom line. I think there's bull dust. I don't think there's a shortage of housing at all. I think it's just a beat up. There's enough houses. If you look on Trade Me, there's about, in Auckland area, it's about 3,500 houses for sale under $500,000. That's the Auckland price. 3,500 for sale now, today, on Trade Me. That's today. Tomorrow, who knows what. And there's a couple of thousand houses to rent under $450 a week. This is the Auckland area. So, and I don't see people sleeping under bridges a great deal, or walking down the streets homeless. So I don't know if the whole thing's a bit of a beat up. Affordability is another question, but whether we should be building more houses in the sort of numbers that are being quoted, I don't know. I have this sinking feeling that it could be, if the builders really get into building tens of thousands of houses, we're going to end up with great suburbs of empty houses that nobody wants because they're out in the wop somewhere or too dear, and people don't want them. And this has happened overseas in Spain and Portugal, where they've built houses, apartments by the million, and nobody wanted them at the end of the day. It's the same sort of theory. So I think you've got to be very careful about all these promises of building tens of thousands of houses. I don't think the shortage is there as a bigger shortage as people think. I don't think there's a housing crisis at all.
Yeah, well, in fact, I was interested to hear John Keys on the breakfast show after the announcement on Sunday, and he was more talking about really what you said, I guess, is there. Of course, Labor said, we're going to build whole lot of new houses for the people because there aren't enough houses. And John Keys said, well, in response was, this money is just going to help the first home buyer. There are plenty of houses out there. They are still going to try to develop more. But, I think this is pretty good for the first home buyers because, as you said, there are 3,500 properties out there. They have got choice. They get an extra 20k towards it, I guess.
Yeah, fine. That's okay. I'm not criticising it. Just that I think it's trying to fix something that doesn't need fixing. Yep. What we do need is a new mortgage type system here. If I just slightly digress, it's crazy that you get mortgages now for 6 months, 12 months, 3 months fixed, or what have you. In most other countries, you can get a 20 or 30 year mortgage fixed for the term of the mortgage.
That's right.
You go to the States, for instance, you can get a 4% mortgage fixed for life, for 30 years, till the end of the mortgage. And why this merry dance that every 6 months, 12 months, or 2 years, or does you got to refix or readjust your mortgage? It's daft. I'm sure the system could be changed. It's what's the point of getting people into houses at a low rate of interest if interest rates double because of inflation? You're just going to force them right out on the street again. It doesn't make sense. So we should have a different system where interest rates are locked in for very long periods of time, and they're just sold as investments, bundled up and sold as investments, as long as they're done carefully and don't make the same mistakes as
I'll vote for you if you do that there, Ollie, so there you go.
Right, because deals can be done with mortgages these days. The advertised amounts the advertised amounts that banks put out there are not the amounts that they charge you if you go there and haggle with them. And I'll give you one little clue. I arranged a large mortgage for myself in a commercial building of mine, where I got it for 25 years. Don't laugh. No? For 25 years, it's 6%.
Right.
But fixed for 4 years.
And it's commercial. Yeah, that's great.
That's better than a home rate. So it shows you if you negotiate a wee bit, you can get a better deal. So it's the 25-year bit that really amuses me, but there we are.
Yeah, that's a good effort. A great effort.
Sort of tells everybody I intend to keep it for a while.
Was that just recently, was it? So
just the last month. That's right.
Yeah, there you go. Well, the bank got optimistic and on your age there, Ollie.
I got two of everything all working, so I guess someone's got faith in me.
Good work. In fact, just one comment I picked up on before, and you're not the first commentator who I've interviewed on these podcasts to say that they don't think there's a shortage in the property market, and I know quite a few out there agree with that.
There's a shortage of nice houses in popular suburbs, like the middle of town or whatever. Many young people today want to sort of start off where their parents left off. I'm sorry, just like me and my wife and our first house was an absolute dunger because we couldn't afford anything at the time, despite the few bob I made. We bought an absolute dunger and worked day and night, slaved on our knees, scraping and painting and wallpapering and God knows what for years. And in a crummy suburb, not so crummy today, now it's a flash suburb, but then it was crummy, and we didn't think anything of it. The young folk today just want to walk into something that's super flash and got all mod cons and twice the size of what we lived in, and want somebody else to pay for it. I'm sorry, mate, get your hands dirty and get stuck in and buy a dunger somewhere in a suburb that you're not that happy with and clean it up, sell it eventually and move on.
Absolutely, that's that's a whole other story about the generation coming through now, but we won't talk about that today.
Could go wax lyrical on that, I tell you.
Yeah.
I've got careless in my hands with a number of hammers. I can turn my hand to plumbing and electric wiring and concreting and roofing and you name it. I've done it all because I had to.
Yeah.
I had to. It's either that or it doesn't get done.
Yeah. Absolutely, doing great stuff. Just as current conditions in the market today, where do you see the opportunities for investors out there?
Well, the opportunities, where are they? The opportunities in residential we're talking about?
Yeah, mainly residential, yeah.
Well, I think the small dog box apartment market is probably... there's two areas. The small apartments that were built in the last few years, which were a bit of a disaster, I think if you're carefully buying there, you could get good returns, and they're likely to become homes for people because they're cheap. They're way below replacement cost. I think there's a good market there, but you've got to be very careful of the type of building you buy into. Because remember, there's no way of improving them by expanding them. They're locked into four walls and a ceiling and a floor. So the only improvement is refurbishing. Because you've got to be careful who your neighbours are. That's one market, I think. And then, as far as Auckland's concerned, there's a thing called the Unitary Plan that's come out, and it's well in advance telling everybody that the main roads are going to be turned into high density and so forth. So if you've got a long-term view, you'll be buying property along main roads because this is where they're going to do infilling. They're already infilling in many suburbs already. So if you take the long view, you want to be ahead of all that, and in 10 years' time you'll be laughing.
Right. No, that's good. And where do you see the market over the next 2 to 5 years? Happening on a crystal ball, and as you said earlier on, the whatever you say expires at midnight tonight.
Right. Well, I think there'll be a levelling off in general, and statistically speaking, that's nonsense because the market consists of many different types of property. There's houses, and there's old houses, new houses, and villas, and retro, and apartments, and lifestyle, and units and townhouses. They all run at different speeds. So when they come out with a number, it's really not very accurate. But in general, I would think that the market will probably level off a bit. You just can't have a market going through the roof forever. And it'll level off and be very good pickings for astute investors, very good pickings, and money can be made very easily. But just sitting back and waiting for the market to carry your price up may be a bit harder to do. So you've got to do your homework and buy right, add value, and be patient. That's what I see the next 5 years. And we'll come back tomorrow or next week or next year and we'll see how right I am.
Yeah, well, in fact, on that point, Jesus, there's some places in Auckland at the moment, especially South Auckland, every 2 weeks the market changes.
Oh yeah,
It's quite incredible.
but I had a very down view on South Auckland for all sorts of reasons, but I have to take it back. I was wrong, and the South Auckland's gone ballistic, and this is because Auckland particularly can only expand north and south. It can't expand east and west. So I think Auckland's going to spread all the way down to Hamilton. If they put a light rail in and it's fix the motorway up, I think Hamilton will become a satellite town and everything in between. Mercer, Huntly and so forth. So if you've got, again, a long view, 10-year view, you'd probably be buying in Hamilton and Mercer and everything in between, and stand back and wait for the wave to catch up. You want to be ahead of the wave, ahead of the ripple, not in the middle of it. If you, as long as you have that long view underlined.
Yep. And just on what you said before, also, I know some seasoned investors out there, they've just been waiting. They've had broadly, I think, the last 2 years or year or so, and they're waiting for the opportunities that are going to be created in the next sort of 2 years when that levelling comes out. I suppose a few more desperate people who have been waiting to sell, or different opportunities they see.
Yeah, well, property has got one unique advantage over a lot of other investments. It produces an income while you wait. There's not many other items of stock, for want of a better word, that produce an income while you wait for them to increase in value, or what have you. You know, if you buy a deal in cars or cups and saucers or whatever, you have to pay the money out and it sits there dead until it's sold. Property is quite different. It's still stock, isn't it? And it's an unusual stock in that it pays you rent while it waits on the shelf for the next sale to come along. So it's quite unique that way. So it's a very important. If you want to deal in the property market, you're either going to be a short-term dealer, buy, sell, buy, sell, buy, sell, and pay tax and be done with it, or you're a long-term holder and be ruthless long-term holder. Anything that doesn't perform over a few years, out the door, but hang in there 10, 15 years from now, you'll be laughing. But you have to take that long view.
Yeah, absolutely. But also, I see the opportunity for the short-term dealers to actually have a look at opportunity for. You might see something in a year, as you said, it's going to really be the time to do a renovation then, not now, for whatever reason it might be. As I said, it's getting that rent in the meantime. You don't necessarily have to have a 7 or 8% yield. It might be a 5% yield to get you through to a year's time or year and a half's time when something's happening in that particular area, and then do what you're going to do.
Yeah, well, a lot of investors I've seen renovate a property and they go mad and they turn into some sort of love fest. That they just fall in love with the place, pour money into it. Everything's got to be now and Villeroy and Bosch and what have you, and it gets smashed up in 18 months. No point. When you're renovating a property for rental, you do the decent thing, you do clean and tidy, but you don't put the world's most expensive stuff into it, because it's just going to turn to custard in a few years of being trashed around by tenants. But when you're doing it up to resell eventually, then you put the money into it carefully.
Great. Okay, and we'll just to really wrap up for today's one. It's a bit of an open-ended question like we started with, but
I don't know where we went. We went all over the place there.
Yeah, but it's good. But we've got a lot of new investors listening now. Some who've got no properties, some who've got 2, 3, 4 properties. What would be your advice to the new investors that are listening today?
Well, get advice from an authorised financial advisor, says I push Barrett, or go to a good property finder. Is that what I'm supposed to be saying?
Yeah, that's all good. You keep talking that sort of lingo there, Ollie.
I wouldn't be a property finder either. It's a hard job there. But no, don't be embarrassed about getting advice. For the few grand you might spend on getting good advice, it may make much more money for you in the long run. People still wake up on a Saturday morning and say, I heard about Fred down the road has bought a property and made money, and say, we'll go out and buy something today. And they go out and they buy the first thing they see and then regret it for life, What's it? Buy in haste and regret at leisure. So just take it easy, and if you don't buy the first property you see, or the second or the third, be patient, and maybe the 103rd one before you buy something.
Yeah, and patience is certainly one thing I've learned in my early property days.
And I'm a very impatient man, and for me to be patient, it's very hard for me to be patient. I like to get things done bang, 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 but I've learned the hard way. You've got to be very patient. But it's a big ticket item. What do you expect?
Oh, it is. It's the biggest ticket item that some people ever buy in their life. They don't even buy one. So investors out there doing it every day. It's a big ticket item.
The cheapest property, their house property, is hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars at the very least. So this is no joke. And you're borrowing money. You're borrowing hundreds of thousands, if not millions, depending on how big your portfolio is. This is no joke. This is serious money. Don't rush into it madly and just buy for the hell of it. Some people get carried away in empire building and want to just buy more and more and more and just create an empire for themselves and and feel good about it, but they go broke in the process.
Yep, we've seen a bit of that happen. So moving forward, I'm going to try to talk Ollie in the next week or so of coming back and maybe do a few series of different topics, but we'll talk about that later on, Ollie. But before we wrap it up today, is anything else you want to sort of add to today's podcast?
Well, just thank you very much for listening to me raving on. The only thing I could add is that investors out there, people should not give up the thought of investing and listen to the naysayers out there saying that people should be investing in productive property and productive assets and so forth. And that's bullshit. If you've got $50,000, you can buy a property. With $50,000, what can you do that's productive? Buy a lawnmower around? Half a fish and chip shop? I mean, this doesn't make sense. There's this easy talk, take your money and invest in productive. I don't know what productive assets are if you've only got a $50,000 or even $100,000 deposit. I don't know what the alternative is. Buy shares and get wiped out one day and open the paper one morning and find that your shares have disappeared. I don't know. So there's a lot of stupid talk out there, and I think people should be able to see through that.
Excellent. Well, Ollie, this has been a real pleasure for us. Years of experience. Okay. So many fields within the property market is immense.
You haven't even scratched the surface yet.
Oh, no, we haven't.
I'll out-talk you any day, mate.
That's why we want to get you back. But I'm sure the listeners have got a lot out of today. So, hey, thanks for your time. I look forward to chatting again soon, and take care.
See you then. Bye.
I'd like to thank Ollie for his time today. It has been great, and I look forward to more next week, where he will talk more about the current cycle, where he sees opportunities, and the market moving ahead. If you have any topics or anyone you'd like interviewed, please let us know. We hope you enjoyed, and we hope you have a fantastic day. Welcome back to part 2 of the interview with Olly Newland. We move on to talking about the current property cycle, opportunities in it, mainly in Auckland, and he gives advice to the new investor. We hope you enjoyed today's interview. I'd really like to thank Ollie for his time with this interview. It has been a real pleasure, and I'm sure you've all got something out of it. We really only have just scratched the surface with property, and we hope you have Ollie back soon to dive deeper into some specifics with property. If you have any topics or anyone you'd like interviewed, please let us know at info@propertyventures.co.nz. Thanks for listening, and I hope you have an awesome day. I'd really like to thank Ollie for his time with this interview. It has been a real pleasure, and I'm sure you've all got something out of it. We really only have just scratched the surface with property, and we hope you have Ollie back soon to dive deeper into some specifics with property. If you have any topics or anyone you'd like interviewed, please let us know at info@propertyventures.co.nz. Thanks for listening, and I hope you have an awesome day.